All right, so back to what we were just discussing about movement on the number line really means that if you're increasing by 1, you would be moving towards the right of the number line. And if you're decreasing, you're going towards the left of the number line. So it means that if you're thinking about this in terms of money, so if you have $6 and you keep drawing, then you eventually reach 0. And then now, if you take credit from the bank, you keep on borrowing from the bank, then you'd owe more and more. So you're building up your negative account. All right, and likewise, if you are increasing, that means you're making more money. Now, this is something that we use to measure how well our finances are too. If you are growing financially, then you would want to know that your money is increasing. So you have more money coming in than you're spending out. All right. All right, so we get the idea of what positive means on the number line. Raise your hand if you have the idea, and what negative means on the number line. Is that clear to you guys? Are you hearing me? Raise your hand, please. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so so the idea of positive and negative numbers will suit these situations. Whether you're dealing with temperature or you're dealing with money, you can use that idea. All right, now, one of the things that we realized though is that, well, these are things to note. Positive and negative indicate a change of direction on a number line. So the moment, if you were going positive and then you see negative, it means that you're going in the other direction. All right, a movement from a point on the number line in the direction towards the right is regarded as positive. Movement towards the left is regarded as negative. On the number line, 0 is the point of reference or the starting point. All right, here we have 2 numbers being added. Now, this might seem a little confusing for some of you, but what we did was to attach a sign to the numbers. So for positive 6, we just put a plus sign in front of it. And for positive 3, we also put a plus sign in front of it. Now, the plus sign in the middle would be the operation. So you're actually adding 2 positives. Now, if you think of it in terms of money now, and we say positive is what you have, then if you have $6 and you also have $3, then how much you have in total? How much do you have in total, guys?
$9, sir.
How much do you have, Miss Cummins? So you have $9 for yourself, right? And that is your money. You didn't have to borrow anything from anybody. All right. And those monies, you probably get $3 from somebody and you get another $6 from somebody. And overall, you now have $9, right? Now, with that in mind, we would get the answer to be positive 9. This was also illustrated on the number line that if you have positive 6 and positive 3 and you move, if you start at one of them and you move 3 places, If you start at 6 and you're adding 3, that means you start at 6 and you move 3 places to the right, you will end up at positive 9. And so that can be illustrated on the number line. And if you start at 3, then you would add 6. So you move 6 places from positive 3. You still end up at positive 9, right? Now, I want you to pay close attention to what is really happening when we have the same signs, right? Now, here we have a negative 5. We have a negative 5, and now we're adding it to a negative 4. Now remember, we say that when it is positive, it is your money. But when it is negative, it would be money that you owe. So in this case, you would owe somebody $5, and you would owe another person $4. So what would be your the overall money that you owe? Scott?
Negative 9.
So overall, you would owe $9, so it would be negative. All agree? Let me see the hands of those who are in agreement. All right. So everybody should clear with that idea. All right, so that's no problem. Now look at this scenario now. Now you have $11, but you owe somebody $4. Now, what is it that you're supposed to have after you pay back that $4? How much you're supposed to have?
7.
You're supposed to have $7 for yourself. And so that would be a positive 7. Is everybody clear on that? Everybody agrees? Raise your hand if you're.
Sir, go back. Can you go back through that one, please?
All right. So as I said to you before, now this number has a negative in front of it. So that is negative 4. Now we did not attach a sign to the 11. Right? Now, if you don't attach a sign to a number, it is assumed to be positive. Right? Now, this is the operation now. So you're adding a negative 4 and you're adding it with a positive 11. But as I say to you, treat it like money you have and money you owe. So you have, how much you have for yourself? Remember, positive is what you have and negative is what you owe. So how much you have?
$11.
So you have $11 for yourself. Now, how much you owe?
$4.
You owe $4. Now, if you owe people money, they're going to Walmart their money. So what you're supposed to do? Pay
Take away from what you have.
right, so you pay them back what you owe them. And if you pay back what you owe, how much you're going to have left?
$7.
Right, so that's why and the $7 that you have left is your money, so it is a positive 7. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Let me see the hands of those who are clear on what I just said.
Sir, so it would be because this taken from the positive that you have, what is remaining would still be positive.
Right, because if you're treating the positive as your money and you treat the $4 as somebody else's money, you give them back their money out of what you have. You have $11 and you pay them back the money out of what you have. Then you pay them back the $4 that you owe them. And so you still have $7. And because it is your money, we say that it is positive. Follow? Is that clear, Ms. Wesam?
Yes, sir.
All right, so as we look at these examples, we'll see many more that we can work with. All right, so now we can also illustrate these on the number line. And so what you would have on the number line, if you go to -4 on the number line and you're adding 11, then you would move from -4 and count 11 places to the right, and you would end up at +7 on the number line. All right. Now look at this one now. What do you think we're supposed to get for our answer here? Miss Scott, are you there? Can you hear us now? Is your mic working, Miss Scott? I feel like Miss Scott is just being silent and she can't be bothered.
It's working.
I know it is working. You're just keeping silent on us. So Miss Scott, what is the answer for this one now? So now we notice that, and I don't want you to think of subtracting per se. I want you to consider that once a number has a negative sign in front of it, then that number is what? Negative. And
Yes,
has no sign in front of it, then it's positive. Now, you're still adding them even though you don't see the plus sign between them. Now, Ms. Scott, are you able to tell me what you think the answer will be?
sir, a -7.
You would have -7. Is there anybody in agreement with Ms. Scott? Could you raise your hand and show me that you're in agreement with Ms. Scott? All right, Ms. Cummings and Mr. Campbell. So why are you in agreement with Ms. Scott? What it is that convinced you that you're supposed to have -7 over here? Can you,
Sir,
all right, go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
because you already have 8. On the number line, you're gonna move 15 digits, or I don't remember what I call it. You're gonna move 15 to left, and I end up with -7.
All right, now
Or you can just
go ahead.
I was just saying, or you can just look at it like I have 8 and I owe 15. So you can
Right.
look at it like that.
So you're going to pay back the $8 that you have, but does that pay off all the $15 that you have? When you pay back the $8, do you still owe any money? Ms. Scott, what do you think? Ms. Wesam, jump in and tell me what is happening here.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with Ms. Scott saying -7 because when taking up when having positive and negative number, and basically we're carrying out we always do the math but keep the sign of the larger number. So we have the +8 and the -15. So we take the 8 from the -15, leave with -7.
Right.
So we always keep the sign of the bigger number.
Right. So, all right. So those are the rules that we'll be pointing out. But just to give you just a real world situation, if you think of the negative as money that you owe, the positive as money that you have, and you have to keep paying back what you owe. So you owe $15 and you have $8 in your pocket. You give back that $8 to the person, or you owe $15. you're still going to owe them what? $7, right? Because you can't take $8 to pay off $15 debt. Is that clear to everyone? Raise your hand if you are clear on that, if you are understanding what I'm saying. All right. All right, very good. Is that clear to you, Mr. Ojeno?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. All right, so out of these 4 scenarios, we realize that we can see some pattern that emerge from the scenarios. And let me just see if I can write down the four scenarios. So first we have +6 plus +3. All right, so I'm going to use that +6. All right, and I'm going to put the numbers in brackets. So that's +6 plus +3. And the answer we got was what? We got what for the answer? We got +9. Everybody saw that? The next scenario now, instead of using the -5 and -4, I'm going to say -6. We're adding -6 plus -3. And the answer become what? What is the answer now?
-9.
Come -9. And let's say now we have +6. And now we are adding +6 to -3. What is it that our answer going to be now?
3, sir, sorry.
All right, so answer going to be
+3.
All right. Suppose we now have -6 and we have +3. What is the answer?
-3.
The answer now becomes -3. Now, based on these scenarios, what is the pattern you identify? What kind of pattern you see with the signs? Anybody? Mr. Ojeno, what pattern you notice with the signs?
So I noticed that with the bigger number that have this sign is going to be the answer that you get.
All right. Now I want you to pay close attention to each scenario because each of them is a different scenario. So this is scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, scenario 4. Now look at each of the scenario and look at, see if you see anything in terms of the sign of the numbers that you're adding with the answer that you get. Do you see anything of a pattern there? Go ahead, Miss Wilson.
It's trivia, sir. I realized that positive and positive gives you positive, Negative and negative gives you positive. Where you have positive plus negative, you take the sign of the bigger number. So we'll have a positive answer. And then for the last one, negative plus positive, we take the sign of the bigger number. So it would be -3.
I want you to look at scenario 2 again in a way, some because you said that negative and negative give you positive. So I want you to.
Sorry, sir. Negative and negative gives you negative. Sorry about that.
Right. Now, this is a very important rule when we're adding positive and negative number. Now, if we strip away the numbers and leave the signs, we will get the rules for adding positive and negative numbers. So now if we have positive plus positive, what is the answer? What is the sign of the answer? It's going to be what? What's it going to be? What sign the answer going to be? Go ahead, Ms. Waysome, tell us. Are you hearing me? If you're adding positive plus positive, Miss Cummins, are you hearing me? Miss Cummins is not here. Seem like some persons are kicked off. All right, Miss Waysome, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So for the first scenario, if you're adding positive plus a positive, the answer going to be what?
Positive.
Positive. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2, if you're adding negative plus negative, you're going to get what?
Negative, sir. It's like adding water to water.
And then now, if you're adding a positive and a negative, what is the sign here? And if you're adding a negative and a positive, what would be the sign here? All right, so can anybody tell us what is happening now with these two? Anybody?
Right, sir. As it relates to the number line, I would say you would take the stronger operation to fit the answer.
What do you mean by the stronger operation?
The positive, because you'll be going up the number line system. So I think where you have the positive and the negative, we would use the positive sign because it would be of more value or greater than the negative sign.
All right. Now, if you look at this second, the scenario 3 and 4, what you notice, as you're probably alluding to, is that when you're adding a positive and a negative, what you generally do with the numerical value, do you add the 6 and the 3? Do you add them? In this case, are you adding 6 and 3?
No, sir.
Value. What you did?
You subtract.
You take away the smaller number from the larger number. And when we do that, what are we doing? We say that we are finding what? We're finding the
Value.
The difference. Remember, to find the difference between numbers, you take away the smaller one from the larger one. right? Is that clear to everybody? So if I say, what's the difference between 12 and 8? What's
4.
the difference? 4. Take away the smaller one from the larger one. So for scenario 3 and 4, that's what you're doing with the numbers. You're finding the difference. However, the signs. So here you take away 3 from 6. You get 3 here. Down here you take away 3 from 6. You're still going to get 3 here. But what you notice in this one here, the sign of the larger number is positive. So the sign of 6 is what? Positive. Now, the sign of the answer is also positive. Down here, scenario 4, the sign of the larger number is negative, and the sign of the answer is also negative. So we can conclude that if you're adding a positive and a negative, the rule is you find the difference of the number and put the sign of the larger number in front, the difference to give the answer. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, in the first scenario, if you notice that what we have here in the first scenario, we are adding 2 positive and we get what? Positive. Here we are adding 2 negative and we get negative. So in adding, when the signs are the same, the answer going to take the same sign. If you're adding 2 positives, then the answer going to be positive. If you're adding 2 negative, the answer going to be negative. So for these 2 scenarios, we say when you're adding like signs, so like sign here would be a positive plus a positive. Another like sign would be a negative plus a negative. So if you're adding like signs, you'll get back the same sign for your answer. Right, so that is scenario 1 and 2. But for scenario 3 and 4, if the signs are not the same, so we are adding a positive and a negative. So these signs, we call them unlike signs. So these 2 up here, we call them what? Like signs. So these are like signs. And down here now, when you're adding a positive and a negative, these are really what we refer to as unlike signs. So based on that now, we can now think of the general rule for these. Any question? So what we say then, if we are adding integers, then if you are adding the same signs, then the answer is going to be the same sign. So if you're adding like signs, you get back the same sign. All right, now, oftentimes the confusion that comes with this is that students often mix up the rules for addition with the rules for multiplication, right? And so if you should change these plus signs in the rules to multiplication sign, then you will get a whole different ball game. Now, in fact, if you have a positive times a positive, what would your answer be? What would be the sign of the answer? Positive times positive equal what?
Positive.
Positive. Now, a negative times a negative would give you what?
Negative, sir.
Positive. And if you're multiplying a positive times a negative, it's a multiplication times positive times negative, you get what? What's the answer? You get negative. And if you even flip around and say negative times positive, you're still going to get what? You're still going to get negative. So notice here, the rules when we are multiplying is different from the rules when we are adding. If you are multiplying two positive, you get positive. If you are multiplying two negative, you get positive. But if you're multiplying a positive and a negative, you always get negative. Now, when students say positive and positive, give you positive, and negative give you positive, because sometimes students say that. Instead of saying and, try to change that and to say positive plus positive equal positive. Negative plus negative equal negative. If you're adding a positive and a negative, or a negative and a positive, you find the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. If you're multiplying two positives, you will get what? Positive. If you multiply two negatives, you will get a positive. And if you're multiplying a positive and a negative, you're always going to get negative. So in this case, you would say, if you're multiplying two like signs, your answer going to be positive. If you're multiplying two unlike signs, your answer going to be negative. Now, I kind of jump the gun and go to the rule of multiplication just to make a distinction with what the rules are for addition and what the rules are for multiplication, because students often mix up these rules. So I'm hoping that now you will have some clarity in your mind as to what the rules for addition are as opposed to the rules for multiplication. Let me see the hands of those who understand the difference with the two rules. All right. So Ms. Waysome, can you now explain the difference for us? What is the difference with the addition rule and the multiplication rule? What are the differences? Go ahead, Ms. Waysome.
Sir,
Yes.
the difference between
The rules of being positive and negative number.
I'm sorry?
What are the difference between the two sets of rules when you're adding and positive and
For you're referring to the number one and the, sorry, kind of jumbled down.
the 4 rules for adding and the 4 rules for multiplying.
Okay, sir. All right. So in addition, sir, we know that positive plus positive gives you a positive. Negative plus negative gives you a negative also. Positive plus negative, we would keep the sign of the larger number, which is the same for the bottom one. And then in multiplication, sir.
Don't forget, Ms. Waysome, that you have to first find the difference, then keep the sign of the larger number.
Right, right. Yes, sir.
Right.
All right. And then where multiplication now comes in, we know that positive times positive is positive. Negative times positive gives you negative. And then positive times negative, the same thing, give you negative, and then negative times negative, sir, give you positive.
Right. So if you can make a clear distinction between the two sets of rules, there's confusion when you're adding as opposed to multiplying. So Don't say positive and positive give you positive, or negative and negative give you positive. Instead, say negative times negative give you positive, right?
Yes, sir.
If
Times. So that
you use negative times negative give you positive. And if you say negative plus negative give you negative, then you
yes, sir.
realize a difference there.
Yes, sir.
All right, and you have to cement in that idea in your mind so that you don't mix them up. All right, is that clear to everybody? Let me see the hands of those who are clear on the rules. All right, very good. Now, I'm going to now look at some rules. So we are a little clear on the rules for addition. And I bring up the rule for multiplication kind of prematurely to kind of show you the difference between the rule for addition and multiplication. But what I want to do next is to look at some rules for subtraction. And to do that, all I'm going to do here, I'm going to erase some of these. So I'm going to erase the rules here to the side. Now here, I'm going to change the addition signs to subtraction. Now, before I determine the answers to these, so I'm going to erase the answers too. All right, so let me remove the answers here. Now, I would like for somebody to give me the answer to the first question. What is the answer to this one?
+3, sir.
+3.
You get +3. The second one.
You get -9, sir.
You get -9.
-3.
All right, so I'm going to